Welcome to the Women's Connection. I'm Barrie-Louise Switzen, your moderator. The Women's Connection is a program about events shaping women's lives and helping one gain authentic power on a personal or professional level. So won't you stay tuned?
Welcome. I can't tell you how delighted I am to have Kathryn Troutman back, the resume guru. And we're going to talk about how to fill out an application for a federal job, especially if you're a veteran. And I would like to welcome Kathryn. Kathryn, welcome back.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here talking about this great subject.
It is really thrilling to have you come back to do this.
Thank you.
Are there any special hiring programs for veterans?
Special programs. So I have the screen right here. There are hiring programs for veterans. Right now, the veterans that are returning from Iraq or Afghanistan, or any veteran actually, will have points that get added to their scores. And in fact, the president created a program emphasizing that the government should hire more veterans, and created an executive order so that agencies would consider veterans more. And here's a slide that talks about 5 points. So if a veteran writes a resume and turns it in to be considered, the veteran would get 5 points added to their score. So if I were to submit a resume and I got a score of 100, the veteran would have a score of 105. And then if you're a wounded warrior or a disabled veteran, you can have 10 points added to your score. So if perchance you get 90 points or best qualified, you get 10 points added to your score. A lot of veterans don't realize how literal the points are with their resumes, and that it can make a really big difference. But the thing is, Barry, they have to be minimally qualified to even get the points on their resume, and that's why I'm here, and that's why we're doing the video, so that they can learn how to write a good resume to take advantage of the points.
What's the difference between 5 points and 10 points?
Well, the 10-point vets are those that are, the percentage of disability is 30% or more, and it's compensable. So wounded warriors are all 10-point preference. And in fact, Barry, not only do they get 10 points added to their score, but they rise to the top of the list. But you know, in Washington, D.C., where there are a lot of wounded warriors, or San Diego or Tampa, where a lot of hospitals are and the wounded warriors are coming back, there's a whole list of wounded warriors, and they all rise to the top. So that means the resumes have to be really good if they're all the 10-point preference vets are rising to the top. So that goes back again to how good is your resume. Because no matter whether you have your points or not, you have to compete and stand out.
What's new with USA Jobs 3.0?
All right, well, that's a great question. This week, USA Jobs put up a new version of USA Jobs 3.0, and there's been a lot of discussion about it. There are certain things that have not worked out so well. One thing that's really incredible about the new USA Jobs is that it's going to be searchable.
What do you mean by searchable?
They never searched for people in USA Jobs, even though they have thousands of applicants and resumes in the builder. They never searched. The only way a person could stand out is if they applied for a certain job and the supervisor received those resumes. They never went and looked for a supply officer or a logistics management specialist or a program analyst living in San Diego. And with the new version, they will look for different job titles, salary levels, years of experience, and then certain people, they could look for veterans. They will be searching, so that's a really new feature with USA Jobs 3.0.
What else is new about the new program that USA Jobs 3.0 have? Okay,
on this slide, we have showing that what's new is no more Social Security numbers.
Yay!
That's right. It's been a very, very big concern that so many thousands of SSN numbers have been in USA Jobs. So now they're going to be managing accounts with their email.
Oh, terrific.
Right. So just don't be changing your email, Because if you change your email, your whole account will go away and you won't get your alerts and your notices. So I recommend that people use an email that they create for USA Jobs and don't change it. So that's one thing that's new. Here it talks about the searching by HR specialist. And so that's why it's going to be really important for the resumes to be very focused toward particular jobs. So, and then another thing is you're going to customize your resume with a title at the top of the resume. Here's a login screen right here. This is what it looks like when you're going to go and get your resume and get your account set up in USA Jobs. When I teach my classes, Barry, many times I have military and veterans come to my classes, and I ask them, how many of you have a USA Jobs account all set up? And many of them don't yet. And I tell them, well, if you want to get a federal job, this is something that you have to do. You've got to set up your profile and put your resume in there and answer these questions.
Veterans don't do this because they don't know about it?
These are the best jobs in the country. They can use so much of the experience that they've developed in the military, so they want federal jobs. The problem with USA Jobs is it's known that it's complicated. It's online. There's a fear, and the vacancy announcements are difficult to read. And so they just don't get started with it. And so, it's good that we're talking about this here in this webinar.
How does a veteran know what job titles are right for themselves?
Well, that's a really great question, and the veterans do struggle with knowing about the federal job titles. One of the first things that they can do, if you look at this slide, is you can take your MOS and go into ONET, and a lot of veterans know how to use ONET. There's a military crosswalk, so you can put your MOS in there, your military job title, and it will tell you what jobs you will qualify for. Another way, this is another good slide that shows the classification standards in government. And I can actually show this to you in a few minutes when I go to USA Jobs, because you can see all the official job titles in the government. And a lot of veterans have no idea what job is right for them, and they don't know that the job titles are different. And that's one problem with writing the resume. And then the last important way to find out job titles that are right is to just read the vacancy announcements on USA Jobs. Just get familiar with it. Look at the titles, read the duties, and see if that job sounds like you. And if it does, good. If it doesn't,
move on.
Yeah, you better go away. That's right.
Kathryn, what are the salaries for government jobs?
Well, the salaries are, it's called a GS schedule, General Schedule of Salaries. And I have a slide here that shows how it works. And they've got steps from 1 to 15. They've got grades from 1 to 15 and steps from 1 to 10. And one way to determine what salary will work for you in the government is to think about the salary that you have made now and for the last 3 years.
If you've been in the military for the past 3 years, and you've been making, I don't know what they make in the military, how do they transfer that to a stateside job?
Well, that's one way of looking at the background. So you can look at what an E5 would make or an E6 and look at their salary and their housing. That makes the number of what they're earning. And average might be $50,000 or $65,000 that they're earning. And if you look at the schedule, you can find $65,000 at around the GS9.
Okay.
Or GS7. So that's one way of looking at how the grades match salaries. But that may not work. It might be that salary is not exactly right. They would look at the experience. But again, you would have to read the vacancy announcements and look at the experience they want you to have. So it is a little challenging figuring out the grade level that's right for a veteran.
What does a good resume look like?
Well, I want to show you on this slide right here. This is what a veteran's resume should not look like.
Okay.
Now, this is a typical resume that is taught in the TAP program, in the Transition Assistance Program. So this format works well for private industry. And it's just a list of bullets. And it's not targeted toward anything. It's just a historical statement of duties. And this is not good for federal. It's okay for private, not for federal. The next slide shows another way of writing a resume that is not good. And take a look.
Oh, my goodness.
Why is that not good, Barry? Why don't you like that?
Well, it's like everything's run together. Nothing stands out. And it's like the fine print at the bottom of a legal document.
Yeah.
And it's like you're lost before you even start.
This is a popular look for a bad resume, believe it or not.
Oh my gosh.
We see a lot of resumes that look like this. So would you like to see what a good resume looks like?
I certainly would.
All right, here it is.
Wow, what a difference.
Yep. Features of this resume are that it is small paragraphs. The length of each paragraph is anywhere from 4 to 7 lines long, so it's easier to read. And then I have all caps, a few words in all caps at the top of each paragraph. And the all cap words come from the vacancy announcements.
Very clever.
Right.
Very clever way to match everything together. So,
that's right.
So the person who's reading it says, they got it.
That's right. That's the goal, and it does work, actually. So we try to pick out 5 to 7 skills or keyword phrases out of every vacancy announcement, and then we put them at the top of each paragraph so that when the HR person who has written this announcement, when they see this resume, they see their words that they wrote in their announcement, and they say, oh, this is good. This person looks like they have the background for this work. We make sure the resume shows that you have the specialized experience for the job, and then we play this amazing keyword game.
How do you find the all-cap keywords?
The all-cap keywords are right here in the resume.
Okay, those are the ones in the top paragraph.
Those are the all-cap keywords. Here's an example from a vacancy announcement. Here's the duty section.
Right.
And so I pull that out normally and put it into a Word file. And I look for words that are either repeated or are critical to the mission of the position. And I try to find 1 or 2 keywords from every sentence in the duty section.
Well, is there better words in the duty section to pull out that you make sure? I mean, like a verb or an adjective or something?
Well, we pull out nouns and verbs and words that are repeated. So, for instance, this one has supply planning and evaluating source data and analyzing historical demand data. So certain keywords from every sentence. And these words make sense for a supply specialist. Mm-hmm. So those would be the words that we would put in all caps. All right. So that the resume would match the announcement. Another section of the announcement where we find keywords is called the qualification section, where they tell you exactly what they're looking for in your background. So we also analyze that paragraph. In this case, the keywords are analytical and administrative supply work.
Wow.
And you know what, Barry, you know what's really interesting? When I look at resumes, I'm a consultant and I review resumes for people and I help them figure out why they're not getting best qualified or why they're not getting referred. I will look at an announcement like I am right now and I'll compare it to the resume. And in this case, I want to find the words analytical and administrative supply work. I want to find those words.
So can you do a search?
Well, I do an analysis just by looking at the words in here. But what happens when people write their resumes, whether it's private industry or federal, they don't go to the trouble of what I'm doing here in analyzing the target announcement.
Well, that makes no sense because they're just defeating their purpose if they're not doing this.
Well, I know. And that's good that we're doing this because I could look at a person's resume who might be a supply person, and you know what? It's very possible the word supply may not be in the resume. It's unbelievable how they miss the obvious keywords from a target announcement to their resume. So this is really not magic, but it's definitely worth talking about. And then there's another section, I'm changing the screen. So now we have these KSAs, and that stands for knowledge, skills, and abilities. And there's a lot of talk about KSAs. They were eliminated last year as separate narratives, but that's where you find keywords, is in the KSA language. So for instance, here we have knowledge of standard supply principles. So they want to know if you have knowledge of standard supply principles. Now, if I'm going to apply for a supply job, I'm going to say that I have, let's say, 3 years knowledge of standard supply principles.
That makes sense to me.
It does. And then I would probably give an example of how I developed a user guide or policies to improve supply principles, to make the supply and inventory more efficient and cost-effective and more faster inventory turns or some example that demonstrates that I have this knowledge. That is how you get best qualified and get referred, is by really digging into your announcements and paying attention to what they say. And what happens in the world is that people don't do this. They don't do this background work that needs to be done to match their resume to a target announcement.
Seems like where you come in as a perfect fit to help them write their resume.
Yes, we do that. I have, even in my classes, people bring their resume and I go through this keyword analysis, and I have them look at their resume in terms of their field that they're looking for, and I have them look for the keywords, and they're just stunned. They're stunned at how the resume is lacking of keywords. And sometimes I will say, well, your resume is a 0. There's no matches here. Or your resume is, 30%. We do numbers, and they get a good laugh, and then they fix it.
And then they get a job.
We work at it real hard. Our goal is to get best qualified.
What do you mean by best qualified?
Well, best qualified is the game. If you're not best qualified, you are going nowhere. And most people, when they apply for federal jobs, they're not getting best qualified. They're getting, most of the time, either qualified or does not meet minimum qualifications. People will apply for jobs for a year and only get either minimum quals or does not meet minimum qualifications. And the screen right here, where it says qualifications,
right, people
are not reading this paragraph, because it says right there in black and white, it says you must have 1 year specialized experience equal to the 5 level in this work. This is my favorite paragraph in announcements, is the qualifications paragraph, because it's really short and it says exactly what they want. So that's what I look at first when I look at an announcement, is a specialized experience.
What you're really saying is people, A, don't read the announcement.
Right.
They don't realize how qualified they are.
Right.
And they don't put in their qualifications to match the job. It's almost like becoming a parrot.
Yeah.
You know, repeating what they're asking for to make sure that you've got it.
Yeah. It is, and sometimes people say, that's not right. That's plagiarism. I can't just take those words out of the announcement. Well, you don't want to just copy and paste the whole section. You have to do a little bit of writing around these words. It's clear that they want analytical and administrative supply work, supply planning, demand forecasting, product quality assurance. Now, how hard is it to put 5 words in a resume?
Apparently for quite a few people, it's very difficult.
Exactly. It actually is, right.
How can a veteran feature college on their resume?
The way that a veteran can feature college on the resume is to describe the courses that they're taking, type them in the resume. Now, some people will say, well, why do I need to do that when I have to upload the transcript? Well, sometimes the HR specialist can't read the abbreviations of the courses on the transcript. So you want to type out and put the courses in the resume. And then also, if you have any major papers, which everyone does in college now, you have major papers and team projects and projects that you work on, describe your projects that you've done in college. And this will help the HR person and the supervisor to see what you've been doing in college, the papers you've written and the teams you've led and the projects you've been on. I was teaching a class at Virginia Commonwealth University several months ago, and I had engineers in my class, and I told them, they told me that they had a very large senior year project that they worked on all year. And I said, well, how do you put that in your resume? And they all looked down at their resume and they said, well, it's not here. I said, oh no, we need to have details about that project and have it really described, you know, the name of the project, the thesis, the steps that you took in the project, and the research and the statistics that you developed, and the paper and the presentation you gave, and the results and recommendations. I mean, really hit your projects, and that can help emphasize the education in your resume.
What is the next step that they should do, Kathryn?
Well, quite a few things, but we'll start with number one, get the documents together that they need in order to write their first resume. Many veterans have never written a resume. They went straight from high school or college straight into the military and never wrote a resume. So they need to get their evaluations and their training certificates all together so that they can compile that resume. They need to do some research and figure out what federal job title is right for them. And that would mean looking at some of the resources that I'm going to be showing here and go to USA Jobs. They need to look for a couple of vacancy announcements that'll be right for them, analyze the keywords like I was just talking about for a few minutes ago to help build the resume that matches this announcement. I would like them to write a couple of accomplishments so that they have some past performance that they can write about and add into the resume. They can get those out of their evaluations. And so put them on paper. Then go to USA Jobs, set up an account, build the resume, and get it into the system. And then look at samples of resumes that they can in books. Don't try to write it just off the top of your head. I just really think looking at samples is a good thing to do. And then start applying for jobs. So,
well, you've got some really great samples in your books. You've got two great books, Military to Federal Career Guide, the second edition, Student's Career Guide. That should really help somebody who's going back to school.
yes.
Fabulous. You can find them on your website, resume-place.com, or they can hire you. Do you have an application that we can look at?
Take a look at USA Jobs. And I think I'll just go ahead and let's just do a tour. Let's look for a logistics management specialist job.
Okay.
Very popular. And we'll look in California. The whole state. Just see. Let's see how many jobs there are with that title in California. And I didn't look this up before. There's only 10.
Oh, that's great.
That's for U.S. citizens. But for veterans, there are more, and there are 34.
That's even better.
Yeah, they have a choice. You have a choice. U.S. citizens, I'm just a U.S. citizen, or veterans and current federal employees. So, look, there's a supply systems analyst right there. And looks a little funny because USA Jobs just got reposted last Wednesday. So, okay, let's just look at the supply systems specialist. And you can see there, there's the duties that we were just analyzing a few minutes ago. And so that's what I would do to look for keywords, is to study the duty section. And then here's my favorite paragraph where it says specialized experience should be this. Okay. And you have to read that and make sure your resume includes that information. And this link here says OPM classification standards. Well, I think I just will click on that and see.
It almost sounds like the government is directing you on how to do this. And it's kind of like, yes, somebody might say you have to plagiarize, but you have to get the key words in.
Yes.
So you have to manipulate it to everyone's advantage, yours
right.
especially, to get the job.
Yeah, you do. The resume needs to match the announcement. It's just as simple as that. I have the classification standards on my website because it's really easy to find. And so I keep that so everybody can find. I'm going to click on the resources page, and going to USA Jobs sometimes hard to find it. So here we go, federal classification chart. So this is one very important page that everybody should look at. If your field of work is supply, or if it's administrative, or analyst, or IT specialist, this is a page where you can go and read the official position descriptions of jobs in the government.
Well, what if your job qualifications, you've been all over the place, and all of a sudden you're out of work, looking, or even you want to upgrade? How do you combine all of your skills and talents and find that perfect job?
You probably can't. Nice try, Barrie. What you have to do is look at the 5 different things that you've done, or let's say you've got 3 areas of experience. You have supply, logistics, and administration.
Okay.
You have to break it down. And then you're going to have to decide, which field of work do I really want to go into? Supply, logistics, or administration? Or do I want to go to school and change my career completely? You can do it if you go to school. But you just can't do it from just put it all together and come up with a new career. The government is very hard to show change career because you have to show that you have 1 year specialized experience in this field. So what I would do is look at your history for like the last 10 years and see where you are most solid, and I'd say, let's do this. And let's see what we can find on USA Jobs, because really you need a job. So that's what I would do, is steer you toward one of the areas of work that you've been in, hopefully an area that you don't dislike. We want you to get a job that you like. But I would steer you towards something in particular, because remember I said USA Jobs, they're going to start searching.
Right.
Generalists don't get found.
Ah, okay.
You're not going to be a generalist and get anywhere. You have to be something. You have to be administrative officer, program analyst. That's why the screen that I have here shows you the official job titles. So that's one of the problems that veterans have, is that they don't really take this seriously, that their resume must be focused toward one particular occupational series to be successful. A person who says, I do so many things, I don't know what to write. Well, let's hone it in. Let's figure it out. Let's look at the background and come up with one field. So this chart, everyone who works on their federal resume should be looking at this just to find, what the official descriptions are and to find their keywords. I do want to show you a resume, okay?
Yes.
I want to show you a case study. Now, this is from my book, Military to Federal Career Guide. And I have a CD-ROM with the book, and it has samples on the CD. And one of my favorite case studies in here is called Jeremy Denton, and I'm going to just open up his resume and show it to you. This is a before resume, and I asked Jeremy. Jeremy was a friend of one of my employees, and I said to Kim, ask your boyfriend. I knew he had just gotten out of the Marine Corps. I said, does he have a resume? Because I'd like to use it in my book. And she said, no. I said, well, would you tell him to write a resume? Because I want to use it. This is the resume he gave me that day. And here it is, Jeremy Denton. And he has here his objective is just something made up, Northrop Grumman. And his number one job, he's out of the Marine Corps now, he has his number one job as being a bartender. There it is.
I love it.
He wrote that. And he even says that he specialized in authentic, detail-driven cocktails.
Okay.
Now, right. Now, this resume is a problem because it's not focused toward anything. He should have left that job off. But that's okay. That's why we have the
good
before and
bad.
afters. That's right. And then here we have the Marine Corps helicopter crew chief. Pretty good description. This is a TAP format. He got his book out from the TAP class and he wrote this resume. So it's a list, a very good chronological list. And then we have his high school and one reference. So that's what he gave me that day. Now, let's take a look at the announcement so I can show you what I wanted to help him target with this new resume. And here is the announcement. And the announcement that I found was for government printing office, and it was for a management analyst, a GS7, which he was an E5, so he could qualify for that. And the program analyst said right in the announcement, do you aspire to lead? Do you like to bring the best out in people? Do you like getting results? Sure. As a helicopter crew chief, I do all that. He did not want to be in the aviation industry anymore. He wanted to leave that and go into management or analysis work or security. And these are the duties for the announcement, working with line managers and evaluating, analyzing. Helicopter crew chiefs do analyze and evaluate methods. They do look for more efficient and effective methods. They do advise and consult senior officers. And this is why the military has challenges with writing resumes, is because they think that they're a helicopter crew chief and they're a plane captain.
But they're more than that.
They're way more than that. They do analyze methods. They do ensure security. They have way more skills than the technical skills of being the crew chief. So now...
Well, let me ask you, on your website, do you have the transferable skills?
No. You have to figure it out yourself. You have to read the vacancy announcement, and you have to. No, that's the problem. It's not written anywhere exactly how a helicopter crew chief translates to a program analyst. There's no book that does that. Well, my book does this for this particular case study, but that's why it's hard. That's why it's hard, because people who are in Iraq or Afghanistan, who are on the ground and they're in teams, and the work that they do there, they don't know how to translate those skills. But that's why, you know, I write these resumes with the skills. So let's take a look at this resume, and you'll see how I featured skills that are not necessarily plane captain. So this resume is very technical here. I've got his preference points and clearance, and he did join the Guard while we were working on this resume in this case as an intelligence analyst, and there we have his skills. He's a database administrator, a trainer. He does safeguarding of personnel information, operation planning, and then accomplishments.
And there's all the caps for the categories.
Yep, all caps, so that the HR person can read it very quickly. And now here's his helicopter crew chief job. He was with the 3rd Marine Air Wing at Miramar. And the first skill that we put here is team lead flight crew member. Now, the government wants team leads in every agency in the government. Team lead is true. But I did add flight crew because it's impressive. So I left that. I leave a little bit of military. Then the second category, scheduling and coordination. That works. It works for crew chief. It works for anywhere. Technical skills. I left some technical skills in there. Critical thinking and problem solving. Oh, believe me, the government wants people who can do critical thinking and problem solving. You're going to see those words in like every vacancy announcement on USA Jobs. And in the military, they do critical thinking and problem solving like every minute.
Well, aren't they kind of also trained to be robots? To say, okay, if this is a situation, you react this way.
Well, they're well trained, but they have to use their own ideas in terms of safety and planning and time management and logistics and how things are handled by the minute. So critical thinking and problem solving is clearly an excellent skill set for a veteran. And so there I have it in all caps. And it is in the vacancy announcements as well. Then the next category is plan and organize work. Obviously, in the military, you plan and organize work. And obviously, you do that in the federal government. You would do it if you work for Apple or Dell or at Walmart. You would plan and coordinate work.
Well, this is a very transitional type of a skill.
Yes, it is.
Corporate or federal.
That's right. Exactly. But actually, you could tell me any military position that there would be, and I could say that they would do critical thinking, problem solving, planning work, and customer service is my next one. Customer services does exist in the military. The team members, the contractors they might work with, they might have worked with foreign nationals, their supervisors. They are providing customer services and ensuring safety and training and communications. And then we have accomplishments. And we featured that he flew 1,200 hours without a single loss of life. I used a little bit of all caps. And then the next one is as a plane captain, he was, very secure. And then we have his military training, education. He forgot to put his education in that last resume. I know, isn't it funny? And he's got a 3.7 GPA out of 4.0, and he forgot to put it on that resume, that little TAP resume. And his awards and recognitions are here. This is a very, very complete resume that includes everything and transferable skills from his work as a crew chief and a plane captain to an analyst in the government. Without taking out all of the military technical terminology, people in the government know what a crew chief is. They know what they do in these positions. You don't have to take out every single term and expecting them not to understand it. They do understand it. So this is a very big difference between that little TAP resume and this one here.
Kathryn, this is just phenomenal. I mean, how to get a job in the federal government, especially for a veteran, when so many are returning home. I can't thank you enough. In the closing moments of the show, what would you like to leave the audience with?
I'd like to leave, I would really, really like the veterans to take their resumes way more seriously than they are. I would like them to know that their resume is their key to their next career, and that they need to spend time analyzing where they want to go and reading those job announcements more closely and doing what I said with the keywords, really getting them in the resume and expanding the descriptions of their work. The resume can make a difference in their quality of life, in their future. They can compete if they will spend time with this document. It's the most important career document that they can write now. My books have great samples in them. Please look at samples. Don't try to make it up. And don't just depend on the TAP samples. More samples that you can look at, the better. And good luck with your search. And be patient with USA Jobs. There's a lot of jobs posted.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming back. This has just been great.
Thank you.
And I hope you have learned something about how to apply for a federal job. And just because you're a veteran does not mean that you can't apply for a federal job. There's a lot of good stuff out there. So let us know how you're doing. If you'd like some help, Kathryn is more than glad to help you. And write us here at the Women's Connection. Look forward to hearing from you. Bye now.